Okay, first thing you need to do is read over this page. There will be a link to this PDF in your Google Classroom. Okay, here's our first example problem. Several years ago, Marlene purchased stock for $7,241. Last week, she sold the stock for $9,219. What was her gross capital gain? So to find capital gain, we want to know how much money did she make in total. So we're going to take how much did she sell the stock for minus how much she purchased the stock for. So the selling price was $9,219. And we're going to subtract the purchase price, which was $7,241. When you subtract those, you should get $1,978. So that's how much she gained. So her net gain is $1,978. Okay, I want you to read this question, pause the video, try to work it on your own, see if you can, and then I'm going to work it. Okay, so this has a very similar setup. She purchased shares for $4,000. After she graduated, they needed money, so they sold the shares for $2,433. So the selling price minus the purchase price is how we find the net gain. This time they sold the shares for $2,433 after purchasing them for $4,000. So it's going to be a net loss this time, so we expect the answer to be negative. And when we perform this calculation, you should get negative $1,567, which shows that it was a loss. Okay, here's our next example question. 5 years ago, Jessica bought 300 shares of a cosmetics company for $34.87 per share. Yesterday, she sold all the shares for $41 per share. What was her capital gain? So, same idea. We want to do the sale price minus the purchase price. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways you can do this. The way I think I would do it, she sold each share for $41, so I would put that in there. And then she bought each share for $34.87, so subtract that from that value. You should get $6.13. This is how much she gained per share. Now the difference here is we know she bought 300 of these shares. So she made $6.13 per share, and she bought 300 of them. So I'm going to multiply those together. So 613 times 300 should give $1,839. And if I was given that problem, I think that's the way I would work it out. Looking at your book does it differently. Your book takes $34.87 and multiplies that by 300 because that tells them how much she spent purchasing these shares. And so she spent a total of $10,461 when she purchased the shares. And then she sold them for $41, and she sold all 300. So when you multiply that, you get $12,300 that she sold the shares for. And so they do $12,300 minus $10,461 to give $1,839. You can do it either way, whichever one makes more sense to you. Okay, here's one I want you to read and try to do on your own. Pause the video. Okay, so let's go over it and see if you did it correctly. Kelvin bought 125 shares of stock for $68.24 per share. He sold them 9 months later for $85.89 per share. What was his capital gain? So Kelvin, I guess after he got finished making his temperature scale, that wasn't enough for him. He decided to buy some shares on his own. So again, it's the same idea. We're looking at the sale price minus the purchase price. So he sold them for $85.89. He purchased them for $68.24. So I would do that calculation. $85.89 minus $68.24. I'm putting that in my calculator. And I got $17.65. So that's how much Kelvin made per share. But now there are 125 of these shares that he had, so I would multiply that number by 125. So 1765 times 125 gives $2,206.25. Okay, here's our last example we're going to look at. Randy paid $3,450 for shares for a corporation that manufactures cell phones. He sold it for $6,100. Express his capital gain as a percent of the original purchase price, round to the nearest tenth of a percent. So we're going to know what percent did he gain. So this is the same kind of problem we've been looking at. It's a final minus original divided by original times 100 to find the percent of change, to find how much his grew by. So his final price was $6,100 minus the original price of $34.50. That's going to be divided by $34.50. And then we want to multiply that by 100, or think of it as moving the decimal 2 places. So once I do this, I should get 0.7681 here. And then multiplying that by 100, or moving the decimal 2 places, gives me 76.8%. So it almost doubled, right? 100% growth is doubling your investment. So he gained 77% on his investment, which is a pretty good return. Okay, try this one on your own. Pause the video. Okay, now let's go over our answer. Allison bought shares in Citigroup Corporation in early 2007 for $55 per share. She sold them later that year for $35 per share. Express her loss as a percent of purchase price, round to the nearest percent. So again, we're looking for final minus original divided by original times 100. But this time it's going to be a loss because she bought it for $55 and sold it for $35. So we expect a negative percent. So the final price was $35 minus the original price of $55 divided by the original $55 times 100. So 35 minus 55 is 20. 20 divided by 55 should give 0.36 or somewhere about that. And so you should find that it was a 36% loss.